my guest and our topic. I would like to share something with you. I received a message asking me if I would make this announcement, so I am making this announcement. On Tuesday, a week from tonight, at the State House, February 18th, the House Judiciary Committee will hold a public hearing on a bill called H, that's for House, 610 is the name or the number of the bill. It's basically a firearms control bill. In the House chamber, they're going to be meeting from 5 to 7 p.m., and they're asking if you would please show up, and if you can, wear orange. I don't have an orange item in my wardrobe, but I can't go anyway. I'll be here. But if you support our Second Amendment rights, our gun rights in Vermont and in this country, please consider going next Tuesday night at the State House in Montpelier from 5 to 7 p.m. And don't forget to wear orange. Okay, that's that. Now I am happy to introduce to you my guest for this evening's program. His name is Dr. Ed Hawk. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, good to have you here. First time.
First time.
Maybe there'll be another time.
I hope so.
Okay. Dr. Hawk is very special. He has a very interesting biography, and I'm thrilled to have him on the show. He is going to be doing something very, very important with a team of people in this county, and I think you're all going to be happy to hear about it because it's a much needed thing to be done. So with that, do you mind if I give a little of your biography?
No.
Okay. So Dr. Hawk grew up in Indiana. He went to Kansas City College of Osteopathic Medicine. I can say that word because I was a nurse. And he practiced emergency medicine for 35 years. He also was medical director of a number of emergency departments around the country, including Northwestern Medical Center. And I'm really proud of this for you. He also received the President's Award for National Regional Medical Director of the Year and the Eagle Physician of Vision Award. Pretty impressive. And he had an addiction medicine full-time practice at Northwestern Medical Center, comprehensive pain program, and much more. Now, are you still doing that or no?
No.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you have a special mission right now that you're going to be working on.
Yeah, it's become a full-time.
I bet it has.
Preoccupation here.
So don't be afraid to speak right up. You know me, I'm.
This is about as much as you get. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll work on you.
Okay. Kick me as I
Just
mentioned.
have fun. Yeah, I'll give you a little nudge.
Okay.
So what would you like to start off telling us about you? And then we'll get into what we're here to talk about in terms of the project that you have going.
Yeah. Well, I think I'd like to thank you first for your interest and you're giving me the opportunity to talk about it with the audience that you have.
It's so important, and I'm so happy to do it.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure too. And I think this is something that I've thought about for many years, about trying to bring something out to the community. You know, I really live in Vermont because of the community. I've been lucky enough to travel around the country at different emergency departments for a number of years, as you said, 35 years. And when I came to Vermont, I immediately felt a sense of community that I had never felt before. And
at home.
Yeah. And so even though I've only been here for 35, 40 years, it feels like home.
You've been in Vermont all that time?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, about 30-some years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I came in 1957, 67, 77, 97. Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, you've been here a little longer than I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's great, though. That's great. But I do think Vermont is pretty special, and I get a lot from trying to contribute as much as I can. You know, as I keep saying, I'm not a wizard at anything. I'm not an expert at anything. But I think if every community member gives back a little bit, then that creates a good, valuable community.
You know what I've been known to say all the time, and I believe it so strongly. When we do for others, we're also giving ourselves a gift because we feel like we're doing something worthy, productive, worthwhile. And that kind of nurtures us at the same time. You don't think about it necessarily at the time that you're trying to be helpful and useful to other people. But then when you reflect on it, you say, boy, you know what? That makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So it's a gift both ways.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'll go off the subject just a second, but we're talking about community. I live in Fairfield, and up in Pumpkin Village, and it's a very close relationship. And I was just getting off one of my shifts in the emergency department and getting ready to go home, and I had already changed and stuff. And I would usually go through the department and thank everybody for the day.
Oh, nice.
Because it can be stressful there at times. And I happened, as I was leaving, peek my head into one of the rooms, and it was my neighbor.
Oh.
And his wife had fallen in the barn and gotten a nasty laceration on her hand that was just full of manure.
Oh, no.
And stuff. And I looked at that, just said hello, and looked at it, and I realized that is going to be a mess. The hand is a very difficult place to get cleaned. And so I ended up changing back, and I worked on him for a couple hours and sewed her up, and then followed her a time or two.
Antibiotics, big time, I'm
antibiotics
sure.
And a lot of, we had this hydraulic washer that we used, and I knew it wasn't probably going to turn out great because it was just at a terrible place. Nonetheless, it did turn out great.
Oh, great.
And I was very taken back, and this is a good example of what community is all about, that I came home probably a month later or something, and there happened to be a basket of vegetables on my back step, and I couldn't figure out where those came from. And for the whole summer, I ended up getting vegetables on my back porch from this and then I finally found it was from the family of who I had sewed up.
Farmers, right?
Farmers. And they were so grateful.
Of course.
And I was so grateful just to be a part of a community like that. So it's a special place, and I've always appreciated it.
And that's a fine example of how things work.
Yeah.
When you're willing to jump in, and, sometimes it doesn't take any more than just being vocally supportive of somebody or patting them on the back or whatever, good job, it doesn't always take that extent of an effort. But fortunately you were there and you knew what to do and you knew how to do it, and the fact that you knew them to start with was interesting. I'm sure they were.
I've been blessed like that my whole life, so it's
very
it's a
nice.
blessing.
Good story.
Taking care of people, yeah.
And she ended up fine.
Yeah, she ended up fine,
and grateful.
Oh, there's no doubt. We became very good friends.
Oh, of course you did. Yeah. And you ate the veggies.
I did. They were excellent. Homegrown.
Good. Well, that's a great story.
Yeah. And I think that kind of leads into this as well. I've had my ups and downs in my life, and I've had through my stressors at one of the first workshops, and we can talk about that in a little bit, but at one of the first workshops, I'm going to talk about my story.
Okay.
And I don't really think I've shared some of the details. I spoke with Melinda White, who does a great job on Recovery Rockstars the other day, and kind of told my alcohol drug story. But some of my personal story, which ties into some of the causes of addiction that they think, and which are some of the stressors in life.
Yes.
And my parents came over from Germany the same year I was born. And my father actually fought for the German army as a paratrooper.
No kidding.
Yeah. And he ended up getting captured and was put in an Italian prison camp.
Oh, my.
And then after the war, after that ended, he went back to Germany with my mother. And not too many years later, after going through the black market in Germany, and those stories were just unbelievable. And then they came and settled in Pennsylvania. And I always kind of joke that I was actually made in Germany but born here in the United States. But I have a imprint on my bottom that says that too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You're legitimate.
I'm a legitimate. But,
okay.
But, you know, some of the things that I grew up with, I felt a significant amount of the stressors that my parents had. You know, they came over with relatively nothing. And my dad came over, my parents came over through the Lutheran Church, and he was a skilled tool and die maker, and the states were trying to find skilled labor at that time. And so, but they had a real hard time with finances. And one of the things that will never forget to me, and we can lead into ACE things, the things that we've talked about in the past, the adverse childhood experiences. But one of the things that I grew up with was I could just feel the stress. I mean, my dad worked days, my mom worked nights, and my grandmother really raised us, my brother and I. And I, after my brother left, because he's about 6 years older than I am, so when I was still in grade school, he was going off to college. And but my room was right next to the kitchen, and the kitchen is always a place where the family congregates. My parents would get there, and they would argue and argue, and it was nasty. And it was, you know, I'd wrap the pillow around my head. So
you didn't want to hear that?
I didn't, but I did. And I grew up with that, and I think that's one reason. Now, seeing that, I could never quite understand why my father always seemed to be angry at something. And I grew up seeing and hearing some of that anger, and I think that's tempered me, but it's also given me some of that stress of growing up through what I call the adverse childhood experience, is when you have loved ones fighting like that, and they never physically were fighting, but the words could almost be worse than the physical part of some things.
And that kind of throws you off kilter, throws you off balance, because you want peace and you want love in your household. I'm not saying they didn't love one another. They may have just been having some hard times. I don't know. Yeah. But for children to hear that and feel that, and you internalize it, you know, and you feel just like, you know, what's going on here, and is everything okay? And you
know, and when you come to the workshops, and you'll see some of the artists and mentors that I will be playing video clips of to kind of exemplify things we're talking about or the tools that we're building. One of the gentlemen, Dr. Gabor Mate, is and he's an internationally renowned speaker, addiction. He was taking care of the heroin addicts in the most dense population of heroin addicts in Vancouver, Canada. And he speaks a lot about ACE experiences, adverse childhood experiences. And he feels as though that childhood period is so important because the majority of the brain is actually developed already or will be within the birth to 4 years of age. So that is a time when, you know, often parents are young or they may be in difficulty. In our cases, we'll talk about some that have addictions or involved with the criminal justice system. And those things have such a tremendous impact on the children that any of these stressors, and I know from the emergency department, I always said, you know, we can't be too critical of people that come to the emergency department because what may be an emergency to you may not be to me, may not be to somebody else. We all define our own emergency.
And you don't know what all the experiences are going on behind
that lead up to that, and they're involved in that. And so all those stressors, we all define our own stressors, what causes me stress in life, which may not you, which may not someone else. But it's those accumulations of stressful activities and events that happen that many experts feel make up half of the predisposition to addictions. So that's tremendously important. And as I try to figure out what has happened and what is happening in my life, I'm still trying to gather information as to what did happen in my childhood. Is there anything back there that could tie with my addictions now, and the way my mind thinks, and the way I react with activities or substances or behaviors or things like that. So,
and you know, children don't have any control over the situation. They're helpless when, you know, unless they're a really bold child who hears that from their bedroom and comes marching down to the kitchen and says, "What are you doing?" You know, I got loud, but
then get pulverized.
Probably, and that's another fear.
But it is difficult, and you know, they talk about the divorces and the arguments and the parental alcohol or drug use, or the criminal justice when one of the parents goes to jail, and all these are very traumatic events that make up what they think is half of the cause of addictions.
And I'm very happy that you're here to talk about this, Dr. Hawk, because I feel that the viewers, whether they are grandparents, whether they're parents, whether they're people who want to be parents, or they're young people who are, maybe they're in high school, whatever, and they're experiencing some of these situations that throw them off kilter, throw them off balance, and make them nervous and edgy and wondering, is everything going to be okay? You know, children don't have the power, the authority, whatever, to change things in the family. They depend on the adults. And the adults who are watching the show tonight need to have an understanding. Hopefully most already do, but in some cases maybe not, what the leading factors are that cause people to feel off balance and maybe worried and fearful, and that leads them to some sort of a product or a drink or whatever that kind of makes them feel like decompressed, you know, from all that stress that they're feeling. And I don't know if we could say that in every case that's how it works. Maybe. What do you think?
Well, Gabor Mate would say, let me try to remember what the exact saying. He says that not everyone who has trauma will develop addictions, but everyone who has an addiction has had trauma.
That's interesting.
That's very interesting. So he has a very strong belief in working with neurophysiology of the brain and the things that shape the brain as it develops in those very influential years, especially early on, that they can have a significant impact, and many times do. The people that, and he'll actually share some of the statistics about ACE and what happens to a child when that happens. So there's a direct correlation. So it's important for new parents. What he suggests is to make sure you've got yourselves in order, your finances as best you can in order, and then focus on your child so that you can give the child as much attention and love and caring as you can.
And guidance. You know, lead by example as they grow. I think we need to repeat a few times this ACE, which is key in young people maybe developing an addiction. adverse childhood experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason why we're talking about all this, folks, is that there's something coming up that is going to be extremely important to the communities in Franklin County, for starters at least. And Dr. Hawk is strongly involved in planning that. And I was going to mention also, I don't want to get away from what we're talking about, but some of the other people who are on that team.
Yep. We've got a very capable team that's, I'm very appreciatively, they've helped me tremendously in putting this together. Melinda White, who is in recovery herself. I think 8 years now in recovery. Sandy Kilburn, a dear friend who is a native and
I know Sandy.
Swanton, who is a very strong advocate of preventive medicine and parent education and going along with the ACE concept. Jessica Zorn was a administrative assistant when I went through a very difficult time at the hospital when I was directing the emergency department and the hospitalist program. She
overload,
but I couldn't have done it without her. Her daughter-in-law, Yvonne Zorn, who's kind of our techie, who's done a tremendous amount of good work on the website. Harry Goldhagen, who is a filmer, director, producer, writer from Fairfield that I know through the Fairfield Community Center.
Good.
Jody White, who is the significant other of Melinda, who's just done a great job.
I didn't have Jody's name.
Yeah. So we've got a great team, and they are very capable, and I am riding their efforts as best I can. But it should be very exciting.
Oh, yeah, that's a great group of people.
Yep.
Sandy's husband, Ronnie, and I were at UVM together many years ago when we were students there.
Ron is a very dear guy. He's a wonderful guy.
Very nice people.
Judge Kilburn.
So you're working on putting together a community addiction workshop. You want to pursue?
Yeah, so where this all came from was back about 2012 or so, 2011, when I started full-time practicing addiction medicine at the Comprehensive Pain. The more and more I started working with patients, the more I felt as though it would be good if I could try to develop some kind of training programs, educational sessions to help people understand the disease of addiction. Because I really felt as though, and what I later found even for myself was, how is it that we could fight and do the best we could at treating what was going on with us if we didn't understand it? And so the first thing I think is to understand the disease of addiction. So I ended up putting together a series of talks and exercises and narratives that I wrote, and we would review those over a period of 6 or 9 months or so. And I was amazed at how well my patients did. They enjoyed it. They looked forward to it. They would take home the exercises, come back, and we'd review them like tests, and I'd make sure they understood the concepts, and I was just really rewarded by seeing them integrate all this information as they went along.
And these were people with addictions?
These were people that I was treating with addiction.
Okay, so they knew you cared enough. Somebody cares about me. They care about the fact that I have this addiction, and I'm sure you listened and you provided them with valuable information and compassion and understanding.
I hope so. A lot of compassion. Hopefully some good information, but a lot of compassion.
Yeah, and so that, of course they loved it. They were learning.
Yeah,
they were feeling... not protected, what's the word I want? Understood.
And I think in a way it helped them get rid of some of the shame and the guilt that they had, thinking, well, I must be a bad person, but I can't seem to control this. I'm doing this stuff that I can't understand. What's going on with my body? What's going on with my brain? You know, I just don't seem to have the fortitude. I feel so bad about all this. When in fact, if they could shed some of those barrels that were dragging along behind us of guilt and shame, they could move forward into understanding their addiction and understanding and doing better in their own recovery.
Sure. And
So then what happened was in about 2010 or so, this was just before I started all that, we had 2009, we had a community. I had founded and chaired a group called the Chronic Pain Narcotics Community Forum, and there was, again, a great group of about 15 of us, very capable people that came from all cross sections of the community here. And after we tried to develop consistent guidelines about the treatment of pain and addiction within the county, we were about ready to disband. We had kind of done the work we set out to. But what we wanted to do as our final going away project was to have two conferences. One was a conference for the community, and one was a conference for medical providers that we ended up doing down in Burlington to a standing room only. It was great.
I bet.
But the community one was called the Community Conference on Prescription Drugs. It was in 2009. And I remember moderating and helping to organize this, and I kept saying to myself, God, I sure hope a lot of people come. You know, I just want so many people to come. This is such a great program that we've organized, and I wish people would come. And 120 people came, so it was a nice turnout. We had a great program. But I kept asking myself, as I wanted more people to come, was, Ed, what is it that you want each of these people to do? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know. What is it that I wanted you to do if you came to this program? I don't know.
Gain some understanding.
Maybe,
Take an interest in getting involved in helping.
Well, you're further along than I was. I couldn't answer that at that time, and it egged me on for years.
Well, you can take me with you to the next one.
Excellent. If I run into trouble, I'll ask you to chip in. Even if I don't, maybe you could lead off. But I kept on asking myself that, and then as I developed more and more with my own program, when I was now at Swanton, the medical director of the Swanton New Day Treatment and Education Program, their opioid treatment program, I started to reflect on the things that I had been trying to teach my patients and teach myself along the way. But then I just thought to myself, well, why is it that we couldn't use that information and share it with the community? I mean, does the community really understand the disease of addiction?
Probably not.
I'm not sure that they do, because it's taken me a long time and I'm still learning. So would it not be possible to take some of that information, tailor it a little bit, but not too much, and then share it with the community to help in one of the four goals of the workshop, and that is to get a better understanding of the disease of addiction. And we now know over the last 10, 15, especially 20 years, that this is a disease. This is a disease in the pleasure center of the midbrain. It has physiologic changes that happen. And these are not, when we think of people making bad choices, these may be bad choices in the beginning. But once you get the disease of addiction, there's no more choice in this at all.
I had a hard time. I served on the Health and Welfare Committee when I was in the legislature, and something came up. I can't remember now the details, but somebody referred to, I think it was alcoholism, as a disease. And I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. You chose it, and you chose to keep doing it. But then it takes over on you, and it's no longer a choice, right?
Right. So what happens is, over time, the frontal cortex, which is the logical rational, decision-making part of the brain, it does the choice stuff. It decides that I'll pick up this paper right now and put it down. But in case of survival, there's no time for choice. You have to instinctively fight or flight at times. Mm-hmm. And we generally think of those things with food, sex, kill. Food because you need food to eat to survive. Sex because you have to keep the bloodline going for offspring. Mm-hmm. And kill because you have to defend yourself. So the midbrain, which there's not much thought there at all, this is one of the earlier parts of the development of the brain. It really focuses on survival, along with the autonomic system that you breathe and don't think about it. Mm-hmm. I swallow and don't think about it. Mm-hmm. I blink my eyes and don't think about it. But over time, the frontal cortex makes these decisions. And then we'll talk about much more in the workshop that the neurotransmitter dopamine, which becomes the neurotransmitter of pleasure, mm-hmm. It is the dopamine that becomes the mediator, that in this pleasure, the frontal cortex teaches the midbrain that this is now part of survival. So at a certain point, and at one of the later talks we call the dopamine pleasure graph, we will actually graph out the disease of addiction, going from when the person first got involved with the drug or behavior or substance, and then how it changes the brain and what happens when you enter the disease of addiction. And then what happens is the brain starts seeing this, the survival, the midbrain part of the body, of the human brain, of survival instinctively doesn't say it's food, sex, kill. Now it says it's drug, food, sex, kill. So the drug comes first. I need the drug more than I do the food. Mm-hmm. I need the drug more than if I have sex. I need the drug more than survival.
It's the priority.
It's the priority. It's the first thing of survival. And that's when we really see that this is a disease.
How long would you say, and I'm sure it varies, mm-hmm. but from the time that a person, let's say, is really stressed out and about some factors in their life, excuse me, and so they start smoking or they start drinking, whatever it might be. And I'm sure it's different for different people as to when that substance takes over and kind of controls that. And
we'll hear from Dr. Nora Volkoff in our workshop.
I wish they weren't on Tuesday nights.
You'll have to watch them recorded. Or
I will.
Maybe you could call. I can give you a doctor's note to call in sick.
Okay. I'll take that.
But what she said, and really, out of all the substances out there, there are very few that cause addictions. But they do vary as to what the body perceives more pleasurable. The faster acting, it varies a little bit on the route you take it. So someone who does intravenous may be getting more of a response, more of a pleasure spike that develops the addiction more than if someone took it by mouth. Someone snorting it may get more influence than by mouth. IV more influence than snorting it by mouth.
But somebody has to give you through the IV, or do they learn to do that themselves?
Oh yeah, sure.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
We'll see that too.
I'm a little naive, and I like ice cream though. I have a hard time.
You have an addiction to ice cream.
Well, not quite, but
you're working on it.
I talk myself out of. Okay, Linda, you had it last night. You don't need it tonight.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
And then you'll go through denial where you'll give yourself some anyway, just because you know you were good. But it does vary by the substance. If you look at heroin, comes very quickly. It's a very relatively rapid progression. Something like alcohol happens over a long period of time. You know, the typical, if there is one, alcoholic is 30s, 40s years old, whereas the heroin addict is in early 20s, late teens, that kind of thing. So things can happen at a different pace depending on what the behavior is and what the substance is.
Well, look at what's happening even with our young people today with addiction and taking their lives. We've had a number of young people who just in this area who've taken their lives.
Some of it's intentional. I think some of it really is a suicide because they don't care whether they really live or die, or
how sad.
Or they, by the time that, and I think that's been one of the problems with Just Say No. The Nancy Reagan ideas that came out back then.
She tried,
but I think it was more of an emotional try rather than an intellectual try, informed try. And that caused a lot of problems. I mean, there are a lot of people in jail, and there's a lot of people with guilt and shame that don't need to have that. But I think that what I'm hoping is we can take all this information, all this sap, and boil it down into syrup that the community can take home.
That's a sweet idea.
That is a sweet idea. That we can take some of this basic 101 understanding, the educational piece, and better understand what's happening, because I think we can better address it.
Yes.
The second goal of the workshop, so that's the first goal of the workshop. The second goal of the workshop is I would love to see or share with the community what a person's life suffering from addiction is. And it's really walking in the shoes of someone. And what we will do in a very interesting manner throughout the whole workshops, and most of this will go on through the website, and I'll want to make a big plug for the website, because everything will be focused on the website. So even if you miss things in a talk here or there, everything will be back on the website. But what'll happen is I'm gonna introduce, his name is Michael Test.
I saw
and
that.
He's like a 27 or 28-year-old male, came out of the military, he was a high school jock. Anyway, so we're gonna walk through his life, and between workshops we will email attendees a new update on his life, and then we'll talk about that each time for 10 minutes or so. And by the time the workshops are done, you will have this bibliography of this biography of this Michael Test in every facet of his life and see what that's like. I think some of us in the community may think that, oh, they live the life of an addict. That's great. They're high all the time. They're getting pleasure all the time. This is far from that. It can be a very miserable life that happens here.
So you don't have control of your life, really.
No, you don't. You don't have control because the brain thinks it's survival. So that's the second piece. Very interesting. I've never seen that done, but we're going to try it.
Good.
The third piece is this is something I want from the community.
Okay.
What I'm hoping is that we will develop a structure that a rural community, one that doesn't have a big regional hospital, one that doesn't have a good community hospital like we have, one that doesn't have treatment programs maybe within it. But out in rural America, whether it's in Vermont or Iowa or Idaho or wherever it is, we keep waiting for someone to come. And I explain it in my story as the hole in the 7 shovels, which I'll do at the first talk. And basically the concept is that the community, no matter how big or how small, has this dark hole called addiction. And people kind of look over at it sometimes, and they look over at it and they reach way over, kind of see what's in there, and maybe their friend gives them a nudge and they fall in. Or they fall in themselves. But they're in this hole of addiction. And we as a community keep waiting for someone to fill that hole in, to protect our citizens, or to help the citizens that are now already suffering from the disease of addiction. So we wait for the feds to come with a big bulldozer and fill in the hole, or we wait for the state and the state programs to come with a crane and fill that hole. But my thought is from seeing what has happened with my patients, and I became much less of a doctor over the years taking care, and more of a life coach. And if we could help, whether it's a whole community or whether it's a handful of people suffering from addiction, help to join in to get their life together, get a foundation of a life to build on. Instead of waiting for the bulldozer and the crane to fill in the hole of addiction, what if we had a pile of dirt and we had 7 shovels? And then everybody, when they had time on your way to work, on the way home from work, you got tomorrow off, so maybe you got an hour to do it. You go and you take one of those shovels and you throw in 4, 5, 6, 7 shovelfuls of dirt. And over a period of time, this whole community will fill in that hole of addiction. It may not be as fast as a front end loader, but what will happen is that same community will have buy-in and understanding of what that hole of addiction and what it takes to fill that hole up. And we will all, as community members, have self-worth because we are, each individual one of us is contributing to filling in that hole and helping citizens with the disease of addiction.
And also getting educated, having an understanding of what it's about, and also an awareness of what they can do, let's say, in their own family or for their neighbor, and you know, when they're raising children, the do's and the don'ts, you know, the things that are okay and the things that are going to harm your child's future, perhaps.
And I think that's one of, and actually Jessica Zorn on the group, that this was one of her big attractions to the concept of this, is even if the entire community doesn't come together, you could look at and hopefully take away from this an understanding, and also maybe an understanding of how you could maybe contribute or help one of your spouse or your relative or a friend who suffers from addiction. What are the things that are causing them stress? And we will dissect all that. And what I want from the community that's there, and I will try as hard as I can to squeeze every ounce of that sponge, that community brain sponge, in breakout sessions, in brainstorming sessions.
Yes,
I want to know every possibility you can think of under a certain topic. And the first one, we will do a mock. I will do a mock with my team. At the first workshop, we'll do a mock brainstorming on looking at transportation. And then the first or the second workshop, I will then break the community up and I will ask again, what could you help as far as transportation to someone in need? And it can be any crazy idea or totally logical idea. Doesn't matter to me. There's not going to be any discussion. There's not going to be any judgment. There's not going to be any critique. We're going to get as many ideas as we can out. And we will go through what I call the life matrix: transportation, housing, employment, finances, relationships, dental, medical, food, clothing, all these aspects of someone's life. And we're going to try to get as many ideas as possible, and then we're going to aggregate all those, and that will be part of this package that could potentially go to a rural community, along with this structure of understanding and walking in the shoes, experiencing the life of addiction.
How many? Oh, go ahead.
And that will hopefully get a community way ahead of the game. They don't need to recreate the wheel here. They can be set on the 4th and 5th step, not back at the trying to think of what's our first step. And then they can integrate their own community members in this structure that we're trying to build. Okay. So those are the first 3 goals. The 4th goal is that we're going to do a quick training. This will be the last half hour, which will be for not kind of a mandatory thing. I won't break any arms, but anyone who has interest to learn about what the overdose kits are, what the Narcan overdose kits are.
Yeah.
They now call them harm reduction packs, so they have additional information, not just about addiction.
Narcan overdose kit.
Yep, the overdose kits. How to use them, and then we will actually hand those out, no charge to people,
Now,
that they can have them.
Do those work just for certain
Opioids.
opioids?
Yep.
Okay. How many people do you think who are addicted to one item or what would you call it, one substance or another,
Behavior, yeah.
are having a productive work life and still having the addiction? Or do you think that's not really something that's happening?
I did.
Yeah.
I did for years.
Yeah.
I mean, especially back in 2010, when I took over the hospitalist program and now directing generally the two busiest departments of the hospital and no staff.
Oh, dear.
It was, it was going to be sink or swim, and I wasn't going to let it sink. So I was going to do whatever I had to do. I was drinking a lot, but I still went to work every day.
Yeah.
So
you had to that was your decompress.
That was I got something, and Gabor Mate will ask, not what is the addiction, but what do you get out of the addiction? What is it, the substance or the behavior?
What is it doing
What
for
does
you?
it give you? And oftentimes it'll be peace and it'll be calm. Just for that period of time, I feel calm. I finally got the stress off my shoulders.
It's like a big, deep breath.
That's right.
Yeah, I can relax.
It gives us something.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, or people wouldn't do it.
Or generally we wouldn't teach our midbrain to put it as survival.
Yeah. Well, folks, we have 12 minutes left.
I want to put a plug in because I don't want to underestimate
Sure.
how thankful I am to the Holy Trinity Episcopal Church
Yes.
in Swanton. They heard about this potential program, and they have welcomed me and us in. They've put their arms, the entire congregation has put their arms around us.
Wonderful.
And they've just opened their doors to us and want to make this a real event in their recovery ministry.
Fantastic.
And anything we can do to help that along. And the parish hall is beautiful. We set up all the chairs there the other day, 100 chairs.
I was
110
there,
chairs.
and I was very impressed with the space.
Yeah,
it was
beautiful.
lovely.
And it's easy access up and down Route 7 to St. Albans. It's right in the heart of Swanton.
Right at the end of the park.
Right at the end of right on the park. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I can't tell you how thankful I am to them. They're donating the space, and they have really, it's been great.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Because that's a wonderful donation. And speaking of donations, I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I know that so far you're funding everything that's going on yourself.
No,
and
a bunch of it.
Pardon me?
A bunch of it, but yeah, we've got some people helping.
Good, you do have some help.
Yep.
But folks, if this is something that's near and dear to your heart, and you appreciate the value and the importance of having these community addiction workshops, and the work that Dr. Hawk is doing and the team with him, this doesn't happen without expense. So if you could consider making a donation now and then to pitch in to make this, a substantive event, then certainly I would appreciate that, and I know Dr. Hawk would as well, and the team.
Yeah.
I thought of that when I was at home. I said, I need to mention that.
And the donations would be written to Holy Trinity, and then on the memo line of the check, you would put addiction workshops. So it comes into our fund. We have set up a not-for-profit account through Holy Trinity, which again, they've gone above and beyond, which allows sponsors, whoever donates, they can then write off that as a donation.
Oh, wonderful. It's tax deductible.
Tax deductible. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's tell folks about
Oh, sure.
this.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
the
it.
dates and
let me this is a flyer that should be up in a lot of different places.
And once Dr. Huck goes through this, then if we have any time left, certainly if anyone wants to call in, the phone number will be back up on the screen.
And also, I'll at the end of this give you the website. So it runs from the 18th of February to June 23rd. Each workshop is different. They all cover a little bit of a different subject. They all build on themselves until we get to the final climax, the last 2-3 workshops where everything starts coming together. You don't need to fear if you've missed a workshop or two. You can always go online to the website and view those. Public Access TV here, I gratefully are recording these, and then they'll edit those and get those in. You'll learn about the body and brain changes, what happens in the brain to where we just can't say no. How is it that individual community members can actually help with addiction, get to know the Narcan kits, as we talked about. The dates are on the flyer. Here's all the dates of they generally about every 2 weeks. I think there is a time where I need to be away for an extra week, so they will be 3 weeks apart. But you can see February 18th, March 3rd, March 17th, March 31st. They're all held at the Holy Trinity Episcopal Church, beginning at 6 o'clock promptly. That will run to 7:30, and then from 7:30 to 8 is the training for the Narcan kits for those who have interest. Down at the bottom of the flyer, this flyer is on the website, so if you forget some things, you can always go to that. But down here at the bottom, you'll see the website is drhaakworkshops.com, drhaakworkshops.com. That will get you on our website, and all this material will be forwarded to that. And as we develop our patient Michael test, I will introduce the materials at the first workshop, but then after that, everything will go to the website where you can follow right along with the development as Michael Test's life progresses. All the workshops will have a narrative written that I've done. So if you didn't catch everything during the talk, you can view it again on the website, or there'll also be what I call a narrative that again will be on the website. The exercises will be on the website, and the answers to those exercises, so you can kind of make sure that you're understanding this as well.
Perfect.
So I'm hoping that this is kind of as comprehensive a package, so to speak, that we can put together.
Can see that there's been a lot of work done to produce, these materials, I just want to say, you've been through the process yourself. You know the ins and outs. You know what works, what doesn't work, and your heart is in it. Mm-hmm. If you can help people to get over an addiction, which can't be an easy thing to do. It's going to take some spunk and some real desire and an understanding of how your life can improve. Would you say?
There's no doubt about it. I think that these series of workshops, if I call them a journey, this will not be an easy journey. This will not be total fun and games for anybody. It will not be an easy journey for me to go through all this stuff because I've lived it. And I think people, I'm going to try to paint as realistic picture as I can give you and as our team can come up with as to what this disease is all about, why do people do what they do, and really suggest to you how much guilt and shame and sincere regret, that's a great word, regret that each one of us suffering from this disease has. This has not been a pleasure doing what we do.
How you've affected other people in your life.
It affects everybody within your life.
Yeah.
And so this will not be an easy journey, and it will not all be fun. I'm hoping, though, it will be rewarding, and that we can take something from this and not just have it be. I think we've done a great job as a community of community awareness. I think Fred Holmes and when he came out with Hungry Hearts and all the people did a great job at community awareness that there's a problem. This now is kind of like the next lap of this race as to what are we going to do about it. We all know someone who has something going on with addiction. And now what can we as individual community members come together with and do to help those people suffering from addiction?
It's a wonderful thing that you and your team are doing. I know that there are a couple of other folks working on the team who have also been through the addiction process.
Yeah.
And so you all have an in-depth understanding of how your lives were affected, how you might have affected other people, you know, how you got through the process of dealing with an addiction. I can't imagine it, but I give you a lot of credit, and it takes a certain amount of strength and determination and awareness about what you're doing with your life, but sometimes it takes other people to bring you into that thought process, to help you to understand. I have chills just talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm using what I interpret here. I don't know firsthand, but I've seen other people, and it's a struggle, but it can be done.
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence.
1 minute.
Yep, I don't think it's a coincidence that they say it takes a village.
Absolutely.
And I think it's going to take a community if we want to move forward on this to really have an impact. And I think each one of us can come out and join that community effort.
Absolutely. So the first workshop is next Tuesday night at
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock at the Holy Trinity Episcopal Church in Swanton, right at the top of the park. And I urge you to come, whether you're addicted to something, whether you know someone who is, whether you're concerned about someone you know, or you just want awareness so that you can help people to avoid it, whatever. Just be involved and informed and participatory. All of us can learn from knowledge. And so I want to thank you, Dr. Hawk.
I appreciate it, Linda.
For coming on the show.
My pleasure.
And for all you do and all you're trying to do to help others. As I said earlier, when we give to others through our own experience, we also get something back for that.
No doubt about it.
And folks, don't forget to make a donation. You can write a check to the Holy Trinity Episcopal Church and put Addiction Workshop in the little line there, okay?
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate that.
And that would be a nice way to make a contribution. Show up and get informed, and I'll try to get to one of them anyway. I'll find somebody to take over the show.
I'll write you that note if you need.
Okay.
Write you the doctor's note so you can get out.
Anyway, we have to say goodnight. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Take care.